Welcome, everyone, to the Verde and Black podcast. I'm Adrian Healy. This is the Austin FC podcast presented by PointsBet, founding partner of Austin FC, and also by Swish Dental. Dental services for the whole family, 10 Austin area locations. Adrian Healy here, delighted to be joined for this latest edition of the show by Andrew DiLallo. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
And in case you're wondering who Andrew is, let's get into that. I think a lot of our fans, Andrew, have heard your name in conversation, just in connection with team activities. You do hear your name a lot, but a lot of fans might not actually realize what you do and even what your official job title is. Well, your official job title is Director of Sporting Operations for Austin FC. So give us the 10,000-foot overview of what that actually means.
I mean, the best way I can describe it is my job is to make sure the players and the staff, coaching staff, don't have to worry about anything other than coaching and playing. So they get on the field, and that's their realm. Once they come off the field, it is making sure everything else, from the smallest detail of when the cleaning team comes in to clean the facility, to when we travel as a team, to relocating the players, all these small details, and basically moving the bus forward of the team is it goes correct, and that goes from Josh's messaging and how that's communicated to the team, to the schedule that goes out, to you name it. There's a lot of details. There's a group of us that work on these things. Without those guys, without Gaston and Andrew Roberts and Rodrigo Ayala and Rudy, these guys help with all those things, whether it's equipment, whether it's, immigration, all these different things to get the guys here. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah. All that messy life stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
So the players and coaches don't have to think about any of that.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big part of last year was you moved 30 guys here.
Right.
In the same 2 weeks, and then top it off with an ice storm and COVID.
Oof.
You could wonder how challenging that is for a guy like Danny Hosen, who's moving here with a family with a brand new kid. It's challenging.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you want to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible so that they can play, as soon as they get here. So
I asked one of our colleagues in the building here to kind of describe you and your role in one word, and he came up with an interesting word. I won't tell you who it was, but he said, Andrew DiLallo, he is a puppeteer. He not controls, but he has the strings. He's kind of directing traffic from above with.
Yeah.
Do you buy that? Is that?
I would say the puppeteer controls everything. I would say I'm more backstage than that. I actually put myself probably below that, and I want to give people a platform to succeed. I try to almost set the table to let them as the chefs come and deliver the meal. Where it is the small things behind the scenes. It's making sure that when a guy moves here that he has what he needs to be successful on the field. It's throughout the training center. I'm taking a message from Claudio and making sure that message is delivered properly. And it's not as much me being the puppeteer. I think it's more letting people make, decisions and properly communicating it to everyone in the building. I'd say that one of my strengths is building relationships with people and making sure that those messages can be delivered, whether it's a hard thing to tell someone or if it's something as fun as like, hey, we have the next 2 days off.
Yeah.
It's a balance, but it's challenging, but it's a balance. And so
I kind of like the puppeteer imagery. Just in fact, the puppets are the players and the coaches. They're the ones that are providing the show, but none of it actually happens without you behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I don't think I'll take credit for too much, but I will say, I hope that I make an impact in some way. So
how much time would you? It's interesting to me to hear you talk about being almost a go-between between the coaches and players. Sometimes, how much time would you say you spend with Josh Wolf and the coaching staff?
I put a lot of time into building those relationships. I try to, it impacts my personal life, but I try to take care of the smaller details of work when I'm not actually in this building, because I think when I'm here and present, it's more, having those conversations, building those relationships, spending time with the players, because eventually in life, like, these relationships is the best part of working in sports.
Yeah.
You know, and getting to know these guys and just like off the field, it's great. So as much as, you know, I work here and I do put a lot of time into being in this building, there is a lot of what happens outside of here as well.
Yeah.
That helps me succeed. You know, I have relationships with our hotel partner at the Fairmont, and I know that if I call them and I need something for a player, that's happening because the time that, you know, I truly value those guys. And so there's all these things that happen also outside of the building that helps with just my job, because it's just how business works.
Yeah.
You know, you network and you meet people, and those are just, you know, things that help.
Yeah. Sport and soccer is almost like rock and roll in a way. It's a topsy-turvy world, and you can't always say things are going to be exactly the same. I was kind of leading you towards what an average week might look like in your life. I don't know if there is such a thing as an average week.
No day or week is the same. That is fair.
But just talk us through maybe, you know, I'm sure one major difference is the team playing at home or is the team playing away? What your week might look like. Like we just went through a week where we went to Portland at the end of it. Now we have a week where they're playing at home. And
yeah.
So just talk us through maybe some of the things that stay constant in your week and some things that vary.
Yeah, it's different. I guess a home game week, we actually have a challenge because of our success in the stadium and how much support we have. But those ticket requests will come in the first day of the week.
So
which is different from most teams, I would think. You know, we have a stadium that sells out, and these guys know that if they don't get their ticket requests in, that they might not have tickets come Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So that's a first thing, and I know our ticketing team's always on me for trying to get those into them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And that also takes the stress off the players, though. You know, they know, all right, here's who's coming to the game, and it's settled, and they're not getting a game day request. They're not. It's just they can focus on the game now because they've already sorted that out.
Yeah.
And there's just things that happen around the building. You know, we have some team events. We had a barbecue last week that was kind of out of the blue. You know, there's these small things happening. For instance, Ruben's still kind of relocating here, so like he's in the market for a car right now. So whether that's me or Gaston that takes him out to get a car, and all these things you want to try to accomplish. It's a Sunday game this week, so you really want to try and get these done before Friday. Because once Friday hits, these guys need to focus, you know. And so these small little things that happen behind the scenes, but we're also planning. You know, we go to San Jose on April 2nd. You know, so that trip, although it's, you know, most people just get on a plane and go, like that. Those details are done this week.
Right.
You know, the details. You know, there's trips in July that, you know, partners are going on with teams. So all these things are kind of in the motion at the same time as the week that's happening. And so it's a challenge of being present with what's actually happened this week.
Yeah.
But, you know, our job in the behind the scenes is also looking forward. You know, for instance, you know, we met with the players a couple weeks ago and just said, hey, here's what's coming up in Austin. There's South by Southwest. There's Dell Match Play. There's NASCAR coming here. To give them ideas of what's happening versus, you know, 2 days beforehand, hey, something's going on. Do you guys want to try and go to this?
Last minute requests, which I'm sure you still get anyway from the players.
Of course.
Can you get me in to South by Southwest?
So there's the general. You know, we train at 10, and there's the preparation that goes into training on and off the field, and you know, making sure everyone's on the same page to move them in the right direction. But there's also so many other pieces that are happening that you can't just react to. You know, you have to have a month of planning into getting 50 people to San Jose.
What time are you in the building each morning?
It varies. I would say last year when we opened it up, I don't think I want to say the time I was here. But now
was the sun up? Put it that way.
I will say this: I'm not the first one here.
Really?
No. There's a very motivated head coach that we have. That's usually the first one in the building. So and I'm not just saying that to get brownie points.
You already touched upon the example of Ruben Gabrielson. You have many layers of things you're involved in. So there's a day-to-day, there's week to week, there's planning even a few weeks ahead in terms of the practicalities of getting 50 people. But there's also bigger picture here as well, sort of longer term. And you know, you mentioned some of the signings. Ruben Gabrielson was one, but talk us through some of the aspects you might be involved with when it comes to a big sort of international overseas signing. I'm thinking Musa Jite last summer, and that must have been an interesting process to go through. I know it's a slightly different time. We'll get into the COVID stuff, but what's your role to play in that once a signing is kind of almost over the line?
Yeah, once we get it across the line, it is getting them here. I don't want to speak too much into the details of the visa process, but it is, especially during COVID, it's challenging to get someone here because embassies are closed and have specific hours in certain places, and it's stressful because a player wants to get here as soon as he can, and sometimes it's out of our control. So that's for sure a piece. I mean, another big picture piece of that is I think we've become a destination for teams, and that's probably shown with preseason. I think we hosted 9 teams at St. David's Performance Center, whether they were MLS, the women's national team, a USL team. So there's other things that go. A team doesn't just show up. Toronto FC doesn't just come to St. David's Performance Center. It's getting them down here to take a visit of Austin, showing them around the city. Committing 3 weeks of their time to be in Austin is a big commitment. And we get a game out of it, but it's also now you're hosting another MLS team. You're the main point of contact for them. So there's a lot of bigger things that are happening because it is this relationship piece where you can, a counterpart of mine at Toronto trust that they know if they come to Austin, they're going to be taken care of, So there's those things, within the team, the immigration side of things is there's no manual for what we do. It's get them here as soon as we can.
Every case is different, depending on what country.
Now we have a checklist of kind of when they get here. Here's what we want to accomplish, and whether it's social security number, whether it's bank account, all the things you want to go through to get them to feel settled. But getting them here is obviously the biggest challenge, especially with bringing up Ruben again. He has a family. So it's not just him that you're getting him here. It's the wife and 2 kids that also have to make the trip. So
are players stunned sometimes by the housing situation in Austin and just how expensive it is for everyone?
Yeah, last year it was interesting because I think moving all the players here at once, and initially guys were saying, "Oh, I want to buy a house," and then you look at the market and it was alarming.
That's a good word for it. I don't ever see that in any real estate listings. Alarming price.
So some guys actually ended up saying 3-6 month leases at an apartment complex until what they found was available, which also made it challenging because you're trying to make it your new home, and you're waiting for the right place to call your home, which was I think Brad moved in the off season, but you knew that eventually he was moving into a house. So as much as you're living in your apartment, you're also kind of like, oh, do we really need to unpack that box because eventually we're going to move. So this year's been a lot easier for them because they've lived here for a year, and guys have been in locations. They know the cities, they know the restaurants they like. They can kind of navigate. You have new players coming in, but it's not just me and Gaston and our coaching staff that are helping them adapt. It's they're players. They're other players on the team. You almost can use them as resources to help assist. I know like a guy like Damian Loss. He's a young guy, and a lot of the players have helped him adapt. Versus having us go with him to look
and
at
this time last year that wasn't the case.
I mean everyone was adapting. So it was
I mean the year 1 to year 2 differences must be. I mean we've seen those differences on the field, and we've seen it in the demeanor of everything around. But from your perspective, I'm really interested in what it must feel like. Not a totally different job, but it's like you've especially dealing when you throw COVID and that situation into the situation last year. Thankfully, we're pretty much out of it. But that must have, you don't train to deal with that, do you? What was that whole experience like?
One of the biggest differences is just the stability, the training center. When guys came in, we had the training center as a place that they could come train and feel as if it was their own. Last year we lived out of the Fairmont, which was great, but you still are in a hotel, and you're driving to the field. You're
busing to St. Edwards every day.
And it's
I remember that.
The comfort of this place is great, and the guys can feel as if this is their home as soon as they come in here, and it's a remarkable place. So it's hard not to be comfortable here. So that's a big thing. As well. There's clear goals with this team now. Like last year, so many people were not saying that we didn't have a goal last year to make the playoffs, but it's easier, I think, for them to understand that, like, okay, we're settled. This is our city. We have our support. Our fans are amazing. Let's do something for them. And there's a clear understanding of not just the players, but even the staff on how we work together, who's responsible for what. Imagine bringing not only 30 players, but look at our staff. I think only 2 people have worked together previously.
Yeah.
So you might have an idea of what you used to do at a previous club, but here, unless you are told, like, this is your clear responsibility, you're still kind of like the smaller things of, like, oh, who sets up the field before training? Yeah. Like the small details of that is, like, still people trying to figure out how people work. So all that stuff's kind of been discovered, and it's helped a lot, I think.
And you've seen it in different stops in your life already, which I want to come to, but I'm sure there's no doubt in your mind that stability and framework off the field leads to,
with the staff especially,
leads to results.
That was one of the biggest. Like, I used to work with U.S. Soccer, the residency program, and we had a consistent staff with the residency program. But then I would go do a camp with the U16s or U19s or something, and the staff that you would have would always be different because you really only had the full-time head coach, and then everyone else was per diem. Yeah. So you're bringing in a whole new staff. You're having to basically teach people this is your role on this trip, and sometimes these are recent college graduates who are this is amazing. I get to work for U.S. Soccer, but it's you're in a professional environment, so you have to try and get everyone on the same page as soon as possible to get them moving in the right direction. Yeah.
You may get this question, Andrew. Sometimes I get it as a commentator. It's like, well, how do you become that? How did you become a commentator? So with a position like director of soccer operations, what's the path? What's your story into that role, and the one that actually brought you to Austin? You played, didn't you? When you were playing?
I played at Davidson College, which was an awesome experience.
How good a player were you? I mean, you captained a D1 team.
I did, yeah.
You still play. We'll get to that too.
Yeah. So I played at Davidson. I was somewhat of a leader for that group, and I was okay. I think I maybe had.
What position you play?
I was striker. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
number 9.
I was a number 9. I was a number 9. I would say the best part about Davidson was that you were constantly out of your comfort zone, whether it was off the field or on the field. I mean, our out-of-conference schedule was Duke, Wake Forest, NC State,
all the Carolina
and then
teams,
you go in conference, and those are battles, right? In the SoCon. So that was challenging on the field, and off the field, it's a good school academically. So like, you're constantly put in tough situations, and that's kind of what I'm in now. Like, as much as I majored in history. And that was nothing to do with what I do now.
Nice.
But in history, it's small details, like you remember facts.
Names and numbers.
Yeah, exactly. You remember dates. You have to use footnotes for, so it did help me to get to where I am, because I had to balance, college soccer and, a very tough school academically.
Did you have thoughts of making it as a pro at that point, or did you know?
I think I got, after freshman year, kind of knew that wasn't a realistic possibility.
Right.
I'm a realist. I would say, like, I could see the competition around me, and I knew that, there was something after soccer at that point, which probably helped me progress into the career I'm in now. Yeah. Because I did start to, pick up on some of these smaller details of how things operate. Yeah. I had no idea, actually, what I wanted to do out of college. I didn't even know this kind of job existed.
Well, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So it's intriguing.
I got lucky. I fell into IMG Academy, big organization down in Bradenton, Florida, and the U17 national team had their residency program down there. And I'm fortunate. Richie Williams was the head coach at the time.
Yep.
And they played pickup soccer every Wednesday. Yeah. And I would go play, and they quickly said, DiLallo, you're with us. So U.S. Soccer residency program versus IMG Academy coaches every Wednesday at noon. And U.S. Soccer had a position open up as a program coordinator, and right place, right time. I got involved with U.S. Soccer early, and this was the first group that I worked with actually was the tutor for the national team.
Oh, nice.
And it was the 98 group.
Yeah.
So actually when Tyler and Weston came back here for the World Cup qualifying, it was funny to see them like
they were part of that
whoa
group. Yeah?
What are you doing here?
Tyler Adams, Weston McKinney were what, 16 at that time?
Yeah,
when
exactly.
Yeah.
I just remember telling them like, hey, you got to do your SAT tutoring. We're in France, and they're like looking at me like I'm crazy. But yeah, and then quickly from being the tutor, I advanced into being the coordinator of the program.
Wow.
And I actually just saw Brian Irwin in Portland last weekend. He was one of the guys I worked with, which was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then from there, it was such a difference between U.S. soccer and being at a club because you fly players in for a camp, and the logistics are so much more in depth in terms of, okay, we have a 36-player camp coming up. I need to bring in guys from Dallas, from Houston,
you
from
got to book
California,
36 different flights,
and you have to have them land around the same time because then you have to get transportation for them from there to the hotel.
Yeah,
and you're pairing up players for roommates that may not know each other, and the dynamics of those different pieces. It really made you like have to focus in on how processes work to do this stuff. You can't just go book a flight, and then not have a way to track it.
Yeah. So you went the opposite way to most people. You went from country, working for the U.S. Soccer Academy, to club. Most players would go in the other direction, but your next move was to go to club football, and your next landing point was Louisville City.
Yeah. There's a couple guys actually that I worked with that did Zach Cruz from Columbus Crew and Zach Merchetti actually from LA Galaxy, Zach Cruz moved on and Merchetti's still there, but they also used to work for U.S. Soccer.
Right.
And went to
maybe it's more common with the U.S. Soccer just because they have that program in Bradenton, and I'm sure that's a breeding ground for all sorts of things. But what led to the Louisville City move? And you had obviously 2 great years there, and that was your first real like club role.
So the head coach at the end of the residency program was John Hackworth.
Yep.
And we obviously formed a great connection, and we traveled the world together, and in some really random countries, especially India. I don't know if I'll ever go back to India.
Nice.
I think I got sick.
I've always wanted to go to India.
7 times while I was there. Somehow.
I have always wanted to go to India. Never been. You can talk me out of it if you want.
So yeah, I'm grateful. Like he's been a mentor for me. And as soon as they closed the residency program, I knew that was a possibility to link up with him again. So he took the job in Louisville, and I think I was maybe one of his first phone calls.
Yeah.
The job opened up, and director of soccer operations, I think there. And that was actually it totally different. I mean, here we have a staff of, I think, 22 people, and there we had 6. So you quickly learn, which has benefited me so much, how much is needed. And then you move to like a club like Austin, and I have an understanding of kind of everyone's role. So as much as you said like puppeteer, like I know what people are kind of doing, but it's not, I don't think it's my responsibility here. It is kind of knowing your role and just letting people perform their role, versus there it was like we need to accomplish all these different things. And there was days where I was filming training with a drone and I was in the practice at times because a player got injured. So I would run to the sideline, set the drone up, set a timer on my watch, and then run into the drill, play the drill, and then as I know that the drone's about to land, I'd have to run back off and stop the recording. And
that's the puppeteer, right?
The best part of it all for me was that Hack would always say, he would always expect it to be perfect no matter what. So even if the drone's camera was off and I was in the session, he would say, DiLallo, you should have captured the whole thing, And it was like that standard that he kind of set that kind of led to like, all right, this is the expectation. Like he coached with Saracen at the national team. He's been around. So I was like, all right, this guy's got these standards. This is, the expectation.
Any coincidence that DiLallo's arrival in Louisville City happened to coincide with them winning a USL championship, making 2 finals in a row?
As much as I'd like to take credit for that, the guys in that locker room, it was impressive. They've set a really good culture there, and the standards they have there. I tried to help advance things, but that group without me probably would have still done it. Again, this is me not trying to take credit for anything. I know those guys also probably have a lot of respect for me, and we played them in preseason. And the second I made the phone call to get them here, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So
they've been here both preseasons.
They have, yes. So again, it's the relationship building, it's the trust. Them knowing that if they come here, that it's going to be done properly, which I think obviously they saw when I was there.
So, how did the Austin move come about? Were you looking to make a move at that point? You've been 2 years in the USL.
Yeah. Ironically, I actually mentioned the name earlier. Zach Cruz.
Yeah.
Worked with Josh in Columbus in the
Okay.
same role. And I had known Zach. And I know when Josh got the job, Zach had give me a phone call and said, "Hey, I know Josh will eventually be interested in And so I talked to Zach for a little bit, and he connected me with Josh, and then. Shortly after, Claudio was hired. And just ironically, Gio had been in the U17 camps.
He was part of your U17?
So my
squad
relationship
too?
with Claudio previously was minimal, but it was more me requesting Gio from New York City to come into a national team camp.
Yeah.
So, and also in New York, Sam Pugsley, who was working closely with Claudio, had my role at the residency down at soccer.
Right.
So there's a lot of different connections.
Yeah.
It was kind of the perfect fit. I was ready to make a move to MLS. And I had a couple clubs that I said this would be the right move. And this was one of them. So
right.
I'm a Florida guy, so warm weather was was a top priority.
I hear you. Where'd you grow up, by the way, in Florida? Which part of Florida?
West Palm Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I played soccer for Wellington Wave Soccer Club, which is a pretty small club soccer team, but
So, so you must have been actually one of the first hires, really. I don't know what number is attached to you, but at what point did it become official from Claudio and Josh? Was it? It was pretty early in the process, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think in January of 2020 was the original sort of offer, and then we moved. I moved here in June of 2020. Would have been a sooner move, I think, but with COVID hitting and everyone kind of working remote, it was delayed a little bit.
So the move from USL to MLS is one thing, but here you are making the move to a brand new team. So not only the fact that it was Austin and everything about this city obviously is amazing and a big attraction, but was part of the attraction not only the people here that you already knew, but also the fact that it was brand new and you were going to get to kind of shape things right from the start, because you weren't walking into an established kind of way of doing things.
I like to think I'm pretty creative, and I think that was a big part of the decision, is that everything was new. You got to make the processes. The biggest challenge last year was, as we're doing things, you're making a process that you're then having to execute.
Yeah.
So you're almost creating more for yourself, but in the long term that it's going to be something that's worth it.
Yeah.
And that's so many different pieces, whether that's like the process of us traveling, the checklist that you go through, and how the rooming list works, and all those different things. But for moving to this club, it was obviously everything was brand new.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Josh, and he's showing me the renderings of the training center and the layout, and you're like, okay, this is a project. This is not like any other club. You're gonna have to get in, and this wasn't something I did, but even it went through my head is like, which way does the door open of this room, right? Is it opening in or is it opening out? Like, who makes that decision? That's the real.
Everything's a decision, isn't it? Now I'm realizing.
And then a year down the line, like the room we're sitting in now is completely transformed into something else, because it's like you actually don't know until you live in a space what is necessary.
Yeah. And you have absolutely taken to Austin life. I know that you live right downtown. There's not many people that do. I know there's not that many players that live right there. You love living downtown.
I do, yes. I do. I like to run. So the biggest draw for me being there was Lady Bird Lake Trail.
Yeah.
So I can get on that trail, and it's more probably therapy than exercise, because I just put my head down and go run for 30 minutes or an hour, and people think I'm crazy for running so much, but it is great, and it's such an awesome area, and I don't think I'd change where I live at the moment. So
Yeah. Now, there's one of you in every club in MLS. They may have slightly different titles, but the role's essentially the same. And I know you probably all work together pretty closely, I imagine. Do you have pretty good relationships with the other sporting directors? And I wonder what that's like. And what do they tell you about the experience?
Well, we have a chat, actually. It's probably more of a, like, I don't know the best word to describe it, but low lights of around the league.
That is a juicy chat. I want in on that.
But it's more like, I won't get too into the specifics, but it is, here's what I can't even speak right now.
What went wrong
in
somewhere?
This place, right? Look out for this when you go to this city. But
it's all useful stuff.
Of course.
You know the pitfalls to avoid.
But yeah, every time someone comes to market, it's you try and link up, you try and help them because you know that they're going to go through the same thing you would go through on the road. Everyone within this role, you have to be like a caring person because half of your job is making sure everyone else is happy. And it is kind of, somewhat like a brotherhood. Like we all know how much everyone has on their plate. And we all know that, like, when something goes wrong, we are the person everyone looks at. So it's how can you help them when they're here? You also know that, like, 1 week you might need a favor from someone, and that, they're going to help you out because the next week they're going to need a favor from someone else. You know, so it is an interesting dynamic, and we all, kind of work together. And
what's their experience been like? What's the feedback you had on teams visiting Austin? I don't think it's any secret. We use the Fairmont. And that's a very nice hotel.
Nice hotel, great location. I think we're one of the only teams that provides a police escort to the games, which is an awesome perk for every team.
Especially trying to drive up 35 and.
We actually take a Mopac.
Oh, you do Mopac? Yeah. Evil Mopac.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Fairmont's got great reviews. I mean, the players that come here, it's almost like we're secretly kind of, showcasing Austin.
Yeah. Yeah.
You come train, like I said, we had 9 teams here in preseason. We've had the U.S. men's national team, the women's national team. You show them the training facility. They stay downtown. When a player becomes a free agent, maybe they select this city, right?
Yeah. What's your favorite place to visit as a visiting? As someone taking a team somewhere else, is there a city where you always?
I think last year was probably Vancouver.
Yeah, that is a great city.
I think we hit it on the best time of the year. I think when we landed, it was 78 degrees and sunny and crisp air.
Yeah.
The West has some interesting cities though. I mean, it's different now with COVID and with the charters. And last year we couldn't really go out of the hotel much. But basically, we go in the night before, and we usually leave after the game. So you don't have that much time to really get out and explore. It's really a business trip at some point,
And you mentioned the charter flights. Obviously, that's come in the last 2 years. COVID kind of ushered that in. Is it here to stay? I mean, I most of the time I've covered this league, teams were traveling commercial. I mean, that was just just thoughts of David Beckham with his knees crunched up in coach was just always amusing, but that was the reality for
I hope it's here to stay because it makes my life so much easier. It's night and day. I mean, especially with the Austin airport, to travel to any East Coast team, we probably would need a layover. So at the moment, it's been great. We dictate when we want to fly. We could train and travel. We can do the vice versa. It's really a benefit to the players and the team.
And to be able to get straight out of there at the end of the game, because that never happened either. You end the game, you're waiting until the next morning and getting a 6 a.m. flight. But
getting back, sleeping in your own bed. I mean, last week was
not
tough.
it's not always that same night you get
6 a.m. Arrival.
So you guys, we're just coming off the back of the Portland game. You walk in at like 6:30 a.m., don't you?
Yeah, that was the latest we've ever gotten back, and the time change didn't help. Because of daylight savings, but that was a rough one. I'll say that. But I mean, you have space on the plane, but sometimes it's just you can't get in a comfortable spot.
Right. The other thing that's changed in the COVID era, which I wasn't even fully aware of this, is the roommate situation. You were just telling me actually
Yeah.
Now players don't have roommates because that was always the case, that they had to be to be paired up.
That's another perk, I guess. Yeah. So they went from always having a roommate to never now, right? And it's been, for guys with families, I would say they probably get a good night's sleep because they have a room and they can do whatever they need to do. But for the most part, I think it's been well received.
Yeah. If they ever did go back to roommates, could you predict who on this team would be rooming with each other?
It's interesting because every coach I've ever worked with it's different. It's random. It's pair these guys together. Some coaches don't want to be involved at all.
Right.
Sometimes the players pick themselves. So depending on how it is,
right.
Yeah, I would say there's some easy ones to pair up. Like a Hector and Ethan Finley. If they had the room together, that's an easy pairing.
Yeah. The obvious connection. Yeah.
And then, some of the young guys, I would say like maybe Danny and Z, probably room together.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of this group gets along. So it's really like, I don't think there's a pairing that would not work. Which is cool to see. What's
the weirdest thing a player's ever asked you to do? And you don't have to name the player. You can if you want. But
I won't name the player. This one probably sticks out because I was so taken off by it, but I was actually asked about a recommendation for a movie theater. So a player asked me, do you have, like, not like a dinner reservation,
right?
Hey, do you have a recommendation for me to go to a movie theater? and I'm like, I don't know. I usually just Google what's the closest theater to my house,
right.
AMC or whatever is there.
Yeah. Whatever where the movie's
what are you trying to see? Yeah. There's been some odd ones, but
I'm sure you gave them a glowing recommendation, and they went. Yeah.
Earlier on, like when I was working with younger players, I wouldn't be as rash, but this one I was like, think about what you just asked me.
Have you ever? I mean, you probably got calls at sort of like 2 in the morning. Yeah. Do you ever have middle of the night calls from players?
Not as much with this group. Yeah, I think that happens for sure.
Yeah.
This group hasn't happened. I would say the latest has been 10. It's expected though, I think, with what I know in some sense, because I actually described it to one of our newer employees, is that it's not as much of a job, it's more of like a lifestyle where, like, I knew Ruben was landing at midnight.
Yeah.
So I planned my day around, what that looks like and being available at that time.
Yeah.
Versus, like, there is going to be the call that comes at 11 p.m., whether it's player or staff, and it could be a bad phone call. It could be a good, like, whatever it is. It's part of one thing that, I think makes me successful in this job is the relationships I have where it does suck to get a call that late, but you've built so much trust that someone thinks that, I can call him because if I need help, he will help,
Which player is most likely to call you having lost the keys to his apartment or his car?
I can't comment on that one.
I'm sure there are some prime candidates.
I'm sure if anyone of them listens to this, they might think, oh, is he going to say my name?
Player most likely to be first on the bus, leaving a hotel to go to the stadium, leaving the stadium to go to the airport. It
varies because on a game day, some of those guys, like, leaving the hotel to get on the bus, they want to wait until, the last minute.
Some do, yeah.
But for instance, like Alex Ring will be in here, one of the first guys here every day. But he's usually one of the last guys to get on the bus going to the stadium.
Yeah.
Because he wants, that's just his style.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty good group in terms of standards. They hold each other accountable. You've probably heard in the training center, if a guy's 10 seconds late to a meeting, there's hooting and hollering and there's a fine, because there's certain rules that you have to follow.
Yeah.
And they do well at it.
Yeah. How about the fun stuff? You mentioned the team outing. You took them. You organized a pitch and putt, which was great.
Yeah.
Some great photos of that.
It's a fun group. They like to be around each other. Preseason was good. We did a 4-person scramble sort of golf tournament. No hole was the same. Putter only on a hole.
Yeah.
Use your best shot. Use your worst shot.
Yeah.
So you got a guy putting in an 8. It's really going to mess your score up. There was actually a hole, I think you added up everyone's score. So you had, I think Owen Wolf got a birdie on the hole. Yeah. And then you had a guy put in an 8.
Yeah. There's some good golfers on this team.
There are some good golfers, yeah.
Led by the coach as well.
He's not bad, yeah.
But his son might be even better, I hear.
Both sons are good golfers.
So any future ideas for those sort of events? Do you have players suggesting things like that? Because I know that was something you couldn't do much of last year, and actually Josh spoke quite publicly about that.
Yeah, it was challenging last year, COVID.
Yeah.
Anything indoors was pretty much off limits. Outdoors was, you had to have the right venue and the right spacing. And this year, I think there's already been a thirst for team activity, even from the guys. Yeah. I know Maxie rented a ranch one day and had all the families out there. That was on his own accord. Yep. And then there's just so much happening in Austin that if we can get, these guys out there and, the more time they spend together, it's the same with anything. The more trust you build, it's going to translate on the field. Yeah.
Well, we're clearly already seeing evidence of that heading into year 2. This has been fantastic. Talking to Andrew DiLallo, the Director of Soccer Operations for Austin FC. And I can't let you go, Andrew, by not bringing up the one time when players know not to call you during any week is Monday evening. Monday evening every week in, week out, because you talked about your playing career. You still do play.
Yes.
To tell us about that and the all-star team that you played for.
We actually started this team under the radar, and it's quickly gained a following in the training center by the players.
Maybe about to increase that following.
Monday nights we play an indoor league. It's most of the staff in this building, myself, Gaston, Rodrigo, Andrew Roberts, Rudy. I think Ryan Madden's on the team. Cam. It's a good lot of us. Struggled early. We just couldn't get it together, and I think we've come to a decent form recently. It's got some crazy rules. I'll say that much. 6 fouls is a penalty kick. Yeah. And we did not do well with that. I think we had a game with 12 fouls. So you can do the math there.
But the penalties aren't normal penalties.
They're run up old school.
Old shootout style penalties.
Old shootout style.
Team name?
Team name is La Banda. It's actually
okay.
We actually get some support from a lot of our players. Cecilio's come out before, and guys have. I think some of our footage has made the match analysis. So
it creeps in there on the.
Unfortunately, they're
morning.
Not highlights. They're. I think a missed penalty by me was in there at one point. So it's not always glorifying. Yeah.
So La Banda play Monday evening. Where do you play? Because I know
I can't disclose the location, unfortunately, because I can't tell you that. I want people out there.
Well, for those of you who are sleuths out there, it's indoor. It's an arena somewhere in the Austin area.
The
Monday
greater
nights.
Austin area.
Yeah, the greater
maybe
Austin
it's in San
area.
Antonio. I'm not sure.
And the kickoffs times do vary, don't they? So that's
let's go ahead and say anywhere from 2 o'clock to midnight. So let's keep people really guessing on how they can come watch.
Nice. Well, it's good to know you're still out there, slotting in the goals with a degree of regularity. I'm sure the old number 9 skills. Haven't gone away. Hey, this has been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Hope it wasn't too painful for you. I know the fans will appreciate a look inside, a look behind the curtain at what goes into it. It's not just 11 players stepping out on a field, is it?
Yeah.
There's a lot that puts them there.
There is. Again, I can't thank the guys I work with enough, because they probably do more than me to help these guys out. So, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and again, it's not as easy if the group's not as good as they are, and these guys are awesome humans, and the staff is awesome, and it makes it so much easier to actually work. I mean, I come here every day, and it's like I don't feel like I'm working. I'm working with people that I truly enjoy working with. So
and that is a blessing, isn't it? Andrew DiLallo, everyone. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Good luck the rest of the season. Enjoy. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. That's your latest Verde and Black podcast. Be back with more next time.